What is up, BookTube? It is Monty, and today, as the title suggests, we are going to talk about Again But Better by Christine Riccio. Apologies if the last name was pronounced incorrectly, but it is what it is. This is another book that is projected to come out on May 7th. So at the time that this video goes up, it'll be like 5 days because it'll be May 2nd. And again, we have a lovely little drink that's going to be going on over the course of this video. So shout out to future Monty who has to edit. I will try not to have my spoiler thing get covered by the book, so I'll put it over in this corner, over here, so I can have the cover over here. So yeah, let's talk about Again But Better. This is I would consider this a new adult contemporary novel. I don't know if Wednesday Books considers this new adult. I don't know if Christine considers this new adult. But that's what I'm going to call it because our main character, Shane, yes, is in college. She's, I want to say like 21-ish, 20. She's right about to graduate. She's like a junior. So she hasn't graduated yet, obviously, but she is spending the summer abroad in England, and there is a romantic connection that is formed. I will say that there is a lot of cheating that happens in this book, but other than that, it is very paint by the numbers, very standard contemporary, right? Like, I don't think there was anything really revolutionary about this. I think this book is just completely unremarkable in about every way. I think that the ideas and themes presented are rather cliche at this point. The character of Shane isn't, I think, interesting in a way that stands out from any other generic rom-com lead. There's nothing that sets them apart. There's nothing that sets the love interest apart from a standard stock romantic comedy lead. The supporting characters are all people of color. One of her roommates in this live abroad situation is very, I'm not sure. When I read it, I pictured the character as Middle Eastern. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if I was reading too much into it. But that was something that I considered to be part of the canon. Whether that was, like I said, intentional or not, I can't speak to. Her best friend in this study abroad is a dark-skinned character. It's not really specified that anywhere I could find that this character is black. I've seen a lot of reviewers take it to mean that she's black, but dark skin comes in all ethnicities. So either I wasn't reading closely enough, or that was just something that people are assuming. And then there's a gay Asian side character who is the least important of all the side characters, and that is because that person is the love interest's roommate, and so we don't spend any time in the perspective of the love interest, which I'm not sure if that would have really done anything to help. This is on Inside Out. I put this jacket on when I was sober, so I don't know what is going on. Like I said, so like there's nothing about any of these side characters that is at all important to the story. There's nothing that really plays, like they don't really play any kind of importance to the narrative, which is a little bit upsetting, but it also just standard rom-com situation where those people just aren't what the reader is here for. As for the romance, I didn't care for it at all. either before or after the plot twist. I'll talk about the plot twist in the spoiler section just because it is a spoiler, but I also think that it's sort of important to know going in, but also, like, we'll just get to it when we get to it. But before and after the plot twist, I wasn't really a fan of the romance. I didn't really think that it was really... I don't want to say believable, but I felt that it was one-sided a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, I felt that Shane was just reading into situations that weren't there. And then, like I said, there's a lot of cheating. You could call it gray area if you wanted. But I feel like it's pretty explicit. It's pretty... It just is what it is. So, at the end of the day... So I can get into like a more spoiler-filled discussion. I don't think this book is terrible. I don't think that this is like bad writing or bad plotting. I think that it's just very cliche. It's very standard. There's nothing, I think, exciting or about it that I could identify. Hello. It's Monty from the future. So, and by the future, I mean this was filmed after I said we're gonna go into spoilers. But this is spoiler free, and I want to include this before that. So, editing Monty, you got some work to do. Okay. I found that the descriptions of this book were highly lacking. I already discussed about how I wasn't sure if one character being Middle Eastern was canon, and if the other character being like a black, dark-skinned woman was canon. That's fine and dandy. That's out of the way, right? My biggest issue with this entire book was I felt that it wasn't invested at all in writing descriptions, at all in building anything. And I think that part of that is just a contemporary thing. I think that a lot of authors... This is not just a Christine problem. But it's just something I personally need to feel connected to a story, and I think that a lot of contemporaries sometimes drop the ball here, is that you get this idea that it's set in our reality, so the groundwork you have to do to build a room, to build these scenes is minimal. And sometimes that's like, you know, you're probably right. Like, a standard classroom, you probably don't need to describe a whole bunch. A hallway, probably not. But there were several international destinations. This book is set, like I said earlier, during a summer abroad in England. But they go on trips to Italy, to Scotland, to France, to a number of other destinations in Europe. And every single time, and because of the nature of the plot twist, we get to experience these descriptions more than once. And each time they were lacking. I felt that I was not there at any of these international destinations. I was only aware that we were there because we would reference like the Eiffel Tower or some other major landmark that is internationally known, and you understand it, and so you can see that, like, that monument, and you kind of understand like what is vaguely around it, you know what I mean, just because you've seen pictures. And I felt that was really a poor thing on Christine's part. But outside of that, like I said, the other descriptions were really lacking. I do think that I personally don't mind a good reference in a book, but this story, this character was very much pop culture. The character. This character was very much... I don't want to say this character was very much Christine. Okay. I don't want to... Because I don't follow Christine Riccio's BookTube channel, so I don't want to be like... Or I haven't in a number of years. But there were a lot of author similarities to the character. Like, it's just... It made it really weird to read at times. So there is that. There is the fact that it is very Shane's interests are Christine's interests, and it does verge on semi-autobiographical at times, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think lots of authors pull from their real lives to create and craft these stories. So I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, you should... Far be it from me, who has no book deal, to tell someone else how to write theirs. But it was a little bit weird for me. It was a little bit weird, and even though I don't mind a good pop culture reference, that the pop culture reference and the landmarks were doing the heavy lifting of the writing, and that's why it was more of an issue for me. So that's why I'm bringing it up, not to sort of attack her as a person. I'll leave a link to the written review I did, which is quite extensive. It's my longest written review. And I'll also leave a link to the Twitter thread that I had while I was reading this, so you can get my reactions in live time. I tried to be vague while I was tweeting. I don't think there are any real spoilers, at least in the beginning. Once we start getting, further along in the book, obviously I'm commenting about the book, so there might be some, so read the Twitter thread with care and caution, but the written review, you should be fine. Okay, so let's talk spoilers, and the only thing I want to talk about in relation to the spoilers is, one, the plot twist, and how the plot twist, I feel, didn't really move the narrative forward, and how I felt that it actively hindered the story that Christine was trying to write. So when we get the plot twist, and it's revealed that we're going to do some time travel, and we're going to do the whole summer over again, I found that was really boring. I also really hate this idea that if we were to go back in time, everything was going to play out the same exact way. But it was also just really frustrating, because Shane and Pilot at this point were both 26, because they didn't go back, and there were two of them. They went back into an earlier version of their bodies, but they still have the memories of the 6 years that had passed. So these are now characters who are damn near 30, acting in the same immature way in the past, when they went into the past specifically to change it, and yet they were determined to not do anything to change it. They weren't doing anything to alter anything, and it was just like, why are you here? Like, what was the point of this if you're not going to change it? And this was also when there was even more cheating, because before it was just Pilot cheating on his girlfriend sort of emotionally, but not gonna lie, before the plot twist, I didn't think Pilot was into Shane at all. So while yes, you could consider that some cheating, I personally didn't at that point, just because I didn't think he was into her. But once we had the plot twist, and we knew for sure that at that time Pilot was interested, that he did want to have a connection with Shane, it was 100% cheating at that point, and it was sort of fixed. He did break up with her in that timeline, but at that point, Shane was dating some random dude who she didn't really care about, she didn't really like, but she was just dating him to date him, and then he had proposed, and then she went back in time and was having this relationship, or was invested in trying to have this relationship, or invested in the idea. It was just a lot of this isn't necessary, because the character who proposes to Shane plays no point in the story, so you didn't need to have them. There was never a dilemma of who is she going to choose. It was literally just there to be there, and I think that it wasted a lot of space. It introduced elements into the narrative that Christine did not want to address. She wanted Shane to get with Pilot, which is fine. I don't think that you need necessarily to have a conflict in like a love triangle type way. But if you're going to introduce these things, then I feel like you should utilize them. And it felt more like, well, this is the genre that I'm writing in, and these are some of the conventions. And so if I add enough of the conventions, then that, along with the pop culture references, along with the landmarks, will prop up everything. And in the end, I think that it wasn't as successful for me as Christine was going for. Again, like, this wasn't a terrible book, it just didn't hit it for me. And so at the end of the day, I did give this 2 stars. And as you'll remember, 2 stars is what I initially gave The Cruel Prince. I think I've since gone back to give it 3 stars. It's what I gave The Wicked King, and that is a series that I'm continuing on to read. I do plan on picking up a physical copy of this book. I do support Christine writing future books. I think this was a solid debut. I don't think this was a book that connected with me personally, but I do think that it shows a lot of promise, and I would be interested to see where Christine goes with a second book. So I do think that there's talent in this book. It just wasn't meant for me. I had a lot of issues with it, which I think I detail more coherently and succinctly in that written review, and even in the Twitter thread, like I already mentioned, that will be linked in the description. So if you've read Again But Better by Christine Riccio, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Feel free to talk to me on Twitter about it. Like I said, this book comes out on May 7th. I'll talk to you when I talk to you again. But until then, bye.